Hi, I'm Eric Tavernier, Editor-in-Chief at Engineer.net, and joining me here today is Dr. Steve Keen, author of Debunking Economics, the Naked Emperor of the Social Sciences, and he also maintains a blog called Steve Keen's Debt Watch that analyzes the global debt bubble at www.debtdeflation.com. Now, Dr. Steve Keen is an associate professor in economics and finance at the University of Western Sydney, and he is one of the few economists that is credited with correctly predicting the 2008 financial crisis. Well, hello, Dr. Keen, and thank you for being with me here today on Engineer.net.
Most welcome.
Doctor, I recently watched an interview with you and Max Keiser that really caught my attention. And you had mentioned that deindustrialization was central to a lot of the unemployment in the United States of America, and that what had made America great was the engineer capitalists of the 1950s. And for the benefit of our viewers, can you elaborate on the engineer capitalist?
Well, what I see there is that, to me, growth in our economy comes out of what is done both in the combination of science, which actually develops new concepts, and engineers who put those into practice. Mm-hmm. And, I've been one of with most engineers here would be aware of the research that gave us the transistor rather than the valve, of course, many decades ago. And I remember that there was one scientific paper that established that there was a minimum size to which the transistor could be made while still working as an RF receiver. And then an engineer came with something that's 1/4 the size. And, of course, we now got to the stage where you get engineering chips that you can virtually barely see that are still effective radio receivers. So it's a combination of the original science developing the idea and then the engineer implementing it into something which drastically improves the productivity of society. And ultimately, that's where true wealth comes from. It doesn't come from shuffling pieces of paper. It doesn't come from reorganizing people into more efficient versions of cubicles. But that type of orientation is something which I think came out of the whole period after the Second World War, when we'd actually been through a very similar bubble to what we're going through now in the 1920s. It crashed in catastrophic circumstances that led to appalling changes in human society that gave rise to fascism and everything else. But what happened in the revulsion to that was we turned away from the financial engineers, the speculators, the spivs who dominated the end of the 1920s, and went back to saying we hand over the way we evolve our society to people who actually build things. There's a real focus on engineering and construction in the attitude of Europe, particularly American firms in the 1950s, and they tended to be run by people who were engineers who came up with a brilliant idea, encapsulated that in a piece of technology, and then built the factories that produced that technology and gave you your industrial strength. Of course, at the same time, we had the economic system built up after the 1950s, and here Americans play a major role too. They undermined some very good ideas that Keynes put forward to stop the tendencies that led to the 1920s recurring. Those tendencies did recur, and what you've really had is a shift from engineers running companies to MBAs and economists running companies, who frankly know pretty close to bugger all, and possibly less than bugger all, about how you actually produce wealth. And in that whole process, they've deindustrialized society by the focus on what they call comparative advantage, which is a nonsense theory of international trade. And we've had a decline in that industrial base of America and a decline in the focus in engineering.